Next is someone who truly knows what it's like to be in the middle of two parents, eventually alienated from her mother. As a child, she can tell us how it affects children when no one is there to help rescue them. Dana is formerly an alienated child with a background in education and the author of You Know Who, an alienated daughter's memoir. She resides in Massachusetts, so please read her book. You will be startled by what a child endures in alienation position. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dana so she can give us her stuff.
So imagine that you are barely 4 years old and you wake up one morning and your loving mother no longer lives with you. And nobody is talking about it. And in fact, there's this sense of everyone seems to think it is okay, even your sister, a year older than you. And you feel viscerally unsafe to ask for your mother, to cry for your mother, to yell and scream. And so you just stay quiet in order to stay safe. I am so happy and grateful to be here today and to help shed light on the emotional life of the alienated child. And I've listened to all the speakers, and I'm so impressed with how spot on everyone is from my perspective as a formerly alienated child. And there's such a great wealth of information now that I wish was around back when I was an alienated child, but fortunately, we're all here today working to, if not eliminate this, at least make the cases fewer, help solve the abuse of parental alienation. It is the most sophisticated, camouflage, deceptive abuse that I know of. And I will do my best to shed light on what the experience is like for the alienated child. So here is my sister and me shortly before the alienation took place. And we had a loving relationship with our mother. We're about almost 4, and my sister is about 5 here. And of course, we had no idea about how our world was about to be turned upside down. So our nuclear family consisted of my mother, my father, my sister, and myself. And our paternal grandparents lived right downstairs from us. And our maternal family, grandparents, aunts, uncle, also lived close by in the next town. We were close with all of them. And in fact, the two families were pretty intertwined. Our two grandmothers were very, very friendly with each other. And our mother's young sister, she had 2 teenage sisters at the time, were friends. Real effects on him were that he was getting what he seemed to want. And my mother's personality was completely different. She was empathetic, she was gentle, and the marriage really eroded her sense of self-worth, her self-esteem, and was just very damaging to her. They were married for 5 years. My mother, as a way to escape the marriage that she was very unhappy in, because of course, if you're in a situation where you're very controlled, eventually you want to escape, but she did not have support to leave the marriage. And she had an affair which of course was a terrible plan as a means to escape, but she hoped she could escape the marriage with the help of another man. When my father found out, of course, this is the ultimate rejection, and she was exiled from our home immediately. My father got a lawyer who called it who called it abandonment. My father got temporary custody, and we would have visitations with our mother once a week. And now here's something I want to highlight is, or what I wish lawyers and judges would pay more attention to is each of the parents cooperating with the other parent's time? Or is there interference? And I realize in some cases a parent will outright ignore a court order for the other parent to have their parenting time. And in my opinion, this should be treated so swiftly and so severely with consequences, because right there you have the beginnings of what to me felt like a kidnapping, a beginning of kidnapping the children's minds, the beginning of pushing the other parent out of the children's lives. And I don't think a parent doing the alienating, in fact, I'm certain they don't listen to things like, oh, this isn't good for the child to interfere with the other parent's time and relationship with them. They listen at best to consequences. And I'm not sure what those are, paying back parenting time, money, something, but I wish for swift action and interference. Some behaviors exhibited by my sister and myself, and here's where you can see how it can manifest a little bit differently in alienated children. So my sister acted very angry at her mother. She talked to her as if she was above her, even though she was only, at this point, 5.5 years old. And she was very aligned with my father. I felt anxious at this point, hearing about my mother, seeing my mother. There was some regression. I wanted to go back to babyhood. But a key thing that we both had is neither of us were expressing our love toward our mother anymore. My father had remarried within a year, and our love for our mother was deeply suppressed. There's another huge red flag for parental alienation. I no longer had access to that feeling of love, and it had instead turned into anxiety, numbness. And to relay this point, I'll tell you a little story. The scene is in my memoir, but it was my, I believe, 5th birthday. My father was remarried. I was calling my stepmother mom now, third red flag. And my mother came to our door to bring me a birthday gift. And I looked at my father and I saw him pacing and looking angry, and that made me more anxious. And I didn't say a word. I opened the gift, I played with it. It felt like being in a dream. It felt like it wasn't even real to see my mother there. And then I saw my father quietly talk to my sister, and my sister came over to our mother and said, "We don't need you here anymore. We have another mother now." Now, anyone who knows about the attachment system, and I would hope every therapist would know, the biological drive for a child to maintain an attachment for their parent, that is being interfered with if the child is rejecting the parent. And as other speakers have pointed out, even children who are abused want to maintain an attachment with their parent. So there's something very wrong about a 5 or 6-year-old telling their mother, who they loved, who they had a good, close relationship with, to go away. In short order, our entire maternal family was erased. Later on, my sister and I found letters and cards in a drawer of our paternal grandmother that were never given to us. And even when we found them, we didn't feel like we could go to our father and say, why are you hiding these letters from us? There was so much fear instilled that we needed to keep his emotions regulated by not bringing up our mother. And you really, as the child, are in this survival mode. Alienation, I think, is made possible partly because of who the alienators surround themselves with. They're the gatekeepers of information for the children. So everybody around me was in support of my father because I no longer had contact with my maternal family. And my father, in fact, invited my sister's first grade teacher to our home for dinner before the school year started. To show, look, he's remarried, we're a happy family, nothing to see here. There were no consequences. People were, if they thought he was doing something wrong, they were afraid to challenge him. And I'm sure this happens in the legal arena, in the mental health field as well, where if an alienating parent is challenged by, say, a lawyer, a therapist, I imagine they would fire them. I cannot imagine them keeping anyone around who does not support their agenda, which is for themselves only. Obviously, my attachment system was manipulated. I suppressed it. And I did not get any sense of empathy from my alienating parent, not any sense that I could ask for my mother, grieve my mother. It was following his agenda or else. Alienation is not a gender issue, and I'm sure there are nuances and different things that might be generally more challenging for moms being alienated or dads being alienated, but it's not a gender issue. And because of that, I am not in favor of groups that call themselves, have the word moms or dads as if it's, we're all for the alienated moms or all for the alienated dads. In my opinion, it sets up just sort of a arguing about the gender issue or who does it more. And as somebody pointed out earlier, it's pretty equal. Anybody can be a pathological parent, a mom or a dad. We can call it different things: intimate partner abuse, child psychological abuse, coercive control, shared persecutory delusion, pathological parenting, obstruction of an attachment bond. All these things apply. And all of these things can occur with parental alienation. And I want to just momentarily address the growing voice of people that are saying there's no such thing as parental alienation. And I think that comes from one of two places. Either they're completely misinformed and just don't have the information, or there's a dark motive to want to say that it doesn't exist. But clearly it does, and I can't imagine somebody reading my book and then saying this didn't actually happen. And I do have sympathy, I want to add, I do have sympathy for the parents, generally moms who need to protect themselves and their children, and in rare cases do need to end contact with their ex-spouse. I understand those cases happen. And parental alienation happens when it should not occur. This is a photo of, that's me on my left holding my first daughter, and my mother in the middle, and then my aunt holding my youngest daughter there. And we were having this was during an early time of reconnection, and there can be many obstacles to reconnecting, and that's why I want to say again, the urgency in recognizing parental alienation early on, right away, and acting swiftly. Some obstacles are obviously the alienating parent and that loyalty bind. And, I had been indoctrinated to feel like, if not believe, to feel like I was doing something wrong by having a relationship with my mother again. I felt this sense of guilt, and logically, I knew that did not make sense. Logically, I knew, of course, I have a right to, but the feeling in my nervous system was so ingrained that it was very difficult to overcome that. In addition, I knew that my family of origin would indeed reject me for reconnecting with my mother. And so there's that fear that is just hard to overcome. And then my mother, as I said before, she did not have the information on parental alienation. And so she was really not, she knew what had happened, but she had stayed in the trauma response for a long time, hung on to her coping mechanisms. So there was not healing that was done. And I would really like to urge target parents out there, and I know it's easier said than done, but any healing that you can do to get stronger will be so beneficial when you do have the opportunity to reunite with your child. And keep in mind, really, in ways that it really matters, you are the stronger parent. You are the one with the unconditional love. You are the one with the truth. And so in addition to those things, if you could look at any healing you might need to do from your childhood, healing from the trauma you have been through, that can only make you stronger and make things a bit easier for reuniting. Finding my voice, I had to really face the truth of this whole situation, fully educate myself on parental alienation, and in order to start speaking more about it, I started off writing in a blog anonymously, and all these parents came forward saying to me, this has happened to me, and I learned of the term parental alienation around that time. I met so many wonderful, loving, alienated parents who just want to reconnect with their child. And, these parents are being very workable. They want to reconnect with the child. And so please, people in the mental health profession and in the law profession, which parent is being workable? Which parent just wants a relationship with their child, is not trying to punish the other parent, is not trying to interfere with their time, just wants their bond to remain intact. And so I started writing essays and speaking about parental alienation in various places, and eventually wrote my memoir, You Know Who, an Alienated Daughter's Memoir, which if anyone is interested, it's on Kindle. You can get it at Barnes & Noble online, Amazon online, Walmart, Target. But it's not for the faint of heart, so I do want to warn alienated parents. It's an emotional read. And I do really appreciate everyone being here and hearing about this. And I hope that for those of you, if you can't help a child going through this alienation, to at least not perpetuate the alienation, which I know everyone out there is listening today is not doing, because you are informed and want to be informed. But that's why I speak about it, is to shed light on it so that everyone, including just the general public, will recognize parental alienation and at least do no harm. So thank you.